All right. I don't know. Did everybody pick up one of my pass outs? Well, you want to pick up one of those. They list some references from books online, where to buy stuff. Then I list some different YouTube people where you can see better than what I'm doing, but okay. So why would you want to use a vacuum chuck? One, it's faster than making a jam chuck every time, because that jam chuck you got to make a different size every time. Well, unless you're making a whole run of stuff. Or it's faster than like a long lure chuck. So setting it up, you just okay, so there are three main parts you need. One, you need your chuck, which is one like this. This is a faceplate chuck, and then I have a whole series of them here, different sizes. So you know, if you want a bowl, say I wanted to do this bowl, put it there, that chucks it. Okay. And if you're doing, say you have a little thing like this, you know, you could do it on here like that, since the edge here is all smooth and nice and round. Or you could find one of these chucks like this and just do it there. Okay. Let's see. Oh, also, if you have a big platter, of course it's not, you can't, well, you could do it on one of these bigger ones. You know, you could do it like that. That'd work. Or you, since this one is smooth, you can do it on here.
I'll ask you a question, but you'll probably get into that later.
Go ahead.
How do you center it? Or are you going to get into that later?
I'll show you. Well, there's a bunch of ways. One, if you have a thing like this, I just spun it and put a pen up to it, so then you can see, and you know, you try and get it so that it's okay, equidistant around. And then you don't put too much pressure on. I have a meter here that the vacuum gauge, and so you know, if you don't have too much pressure, you can spin it and move it a little bit. Okay, it's a good question.
Centerpiece on your tailstock, and
well, yes, that's the other way. So, like if I have this on here, okay, what I have this piece of equipment here that allows you to just do it very easily. And what I do, I have this adapter, and so it's got a number 2 Morse taper that fits right in your tailstock, and it's got this aluminum adapter that has threads to match your chuck. So you just, if you kept the bowl or whatever, your piece, with, which is what I do.
In other words, you just finished turning that on that particular chuck.
Well, yeah, if you notice, almost all my bowls, this one doesn't have it, but almost all the others, I cut with an internal, I do an internal thing, so I can always, even after it's finished 3 years from now, I can go and mount it and, you know, say you get a big break on this corner. You could go and return part of it and fix it. The other thing you want to do you either want to do something like this, or what you can do is always leave a center point when you're turning. You know, you just leave a dot there or something. So then you could use the point of your, you know, your tailstock and push it up again there, and then you know it's centered too. So, you know, for example, even on this one, I did leave a little center so I could put it up and do it. Okay. Okay. One of the things you worry about when you do this is the thickness of your wood and how strong it is. So if you have a piece that you did that's paper thin, or just slightly thicker than paper, you know, you got to be really careful about how much pressure you put on it and how, okay, and so on the pass out, you'll notice on the second page of the pass out, there's a sheet here on this page that shows you your size of your chuck and how many inches across the top is how many inches of mercury you're pulling in vacuum. So that's basically what this gauge is going to read. Okay? The maximum that can go is 30. Okay? That's the atmospheric pressure. The holding force of a vacuum chuck is the atmospheric pressure, and it presses against, because you have a vacuum in here, the atmosphere will just hold that. And if you notice, if you get a very large one, say a 6-inch diameter at 27 inches, that's 440 pounds. So that's like two of us standing on top of it. You know, I don't care how thick you make it, it's still going to be, you need to make it pretty thick. So otherwise you'll break it. Okay, so this piece I have here.
Wait, can you go back a second?
Sure.
The 1 1/4, 1 1/2, it says nominal. What is that?
Okay, so what I did is I went and I bought couplings.
Okay, I see.
Okay, and these couplings it says the PVC coupling, so that's what that is. I just went to Home Depot or Lowe's okay, and I bought couplings. So this is 1 1/4 inches. And so I measured, after I got it home, I measured the internal diameter, because that's how much vacuum, or where the vacuum is going to pull against. And I actually measured that, calculated the area. There's a multiplier that comes up to get so many pounds per inch of mercury, and then I multiplied it out for every inch of mercury from 10 through 27.
So you're saying, as a 19 example, that's 19 times the 16, is that correct?
Wait, what?
Wait, 16, 320, yeah. Okay, down to the very bottom.
Yes.
Nominal 6? Okay.
Nominal 6 and 19? Yeah, that's 300.
Okay, 16 times the 19 will give you the 309, is that correct?
I don't know, but I have this all in a spreadsheet, so I don't remember what my formulas are.
Oh,
That's why I did it and passed it out.
I think that's right, because
I think that's right too,
16
but
times, oh wait, there it is, 16 times 20 is 326, so that would be right.
okay.
Okay.
And that's not reading on your gauge, or is that reading on your gauge?
The reading on your gauge is the thing across the top here.
Oh, okay, okay.
Okay, and then the size of your chuck. Now you know, you don't have to use a coupling. You can just use the pipe. But if you go and buy a pipe, you buy a 10-foot length and then cut it off. You make a whole bunch of them, but they're not as thick as this. Here, why don't we pass these around? Here, Nelson, you can pass that around. You can see it has a little nub on the edge. You want to take that off So that's a coupling.
That's a PVC coupler.
That's a PVC coupling. And they come in all these sizes, and then they,
40,
huh?
Schedule 40. I
Yeah,
think they are.
yeah, I think that's right.
You can get thinner ones, but it's probably not recommended.
Yeah, I don't,
You can.
No, because vacuum, a lot of
yeah.
can collapse.
Anyhow, and then you can't, this is an adapter that goes from, I think it's 3 inches to 4. Yeah. So I got this to show that, you know, it doesn't have to be straight. Okay? So,
Wait a minute, what do you mean when you say straight?
well, it doesn't have to just come straight out. It can flare out even.
Oh, yeah.
So, okay? That pressure is distributed throughout a vessel. Okay? And so that becomes a vessel when you put a thing over the top of it.
But once you get that in there, though, you want to face the...
That's correct.
Reface the...
That's right. So what I do is
Just in case you have a little bit crooked.
I mount this, and then I take my skew chisel and scrape the edge, okay?
That makes sense, yeah.
And then I use this, foamies. You get these at Walmart. They're like $5 for this whole pack. Now, if you go to
Michael's or...
no, Craft Supply or someplace like that, they'll give you a couple sheets or something that's a little thicker, and they'll want $15 for it. You don't need to, it doesn't need to be thicker, and you don't need to pay $15, is my point.
I'm going to ask you, what do they use them for? Not you, but what does other people? I mean, what are they? Foamies?
Yeah, you just go into the craft section and buy them. You can pass that around. And then it also comes, I think this was $2 or $3. You can get great big ones. Okay, and that's what I used to make the face of this flat plate. Actually, my plate was too big for one. You'll see a line across here. So I just put 2 of them together.
Well, that's a good idea. But what do people use foamies for, do you know? I mean,
All kinds of crap.
Just
All
crap.
kinds of
Or
crap.
maybe a base for something so it doesn't scratch something or
I don't know.
stay
yeah.
stationary.
I just know they got them there.
That's good. Yeah.
Okay?
Your wife would like something made out of that.
Is there a picture on there that shows something?
No? No, just circuit designs. I don't know.
I'd say for bases as much as anything, I guess.
Yeah.
Like in place of felt or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Probably won't slip.
Then there's no place to sign and work.
Okay, so basically, the amount of force is dependent on the area of this and the pressure that you're pulling, or the number of inches of vacuum. And the actual, if the air pressure outside is low, in other words, we're in a low pressure area, in other words, there's probably a storm outside, you're not going to be able to pull as many inches of vacuum as you could when the pressure is high outside. Okay? It's going to vary by, you know, they vary usually between 30 and 28 and a half. If you're down to 28 and a half, we're probably having a hurricane. So, but, yeah. Okay, so, if you have something like this, where it's hollowed, you can put that on a thing like this. If you have one that's perfectly flat, like a plate that's perfectly flat, and you go to put it on here, the hole you'll have will only be this big. Or if you would mount it on the bottom where it's perfectly flat. So you got to understand, you got to have enough depth so the vacuum, you have a vacuum chamber. And if you make it perfectly flat, the only chamber is this little hole here. So it's not very much. Okay. So you can buy chucks. You can go on, One Way makes chucks, Hold Fast makes chucks. They sell them on at Craft Supply and, you know, different places like that. But, oh, and they also, some people were making them out just out of wood. And so this outer size was made out of wood. But that's a lot of work. This is a lot, you know, for a couple bucks. Where's the other one? I brought one. Oh, it's the one I was passing around. Yeah. I paid $1.80 for that. You know, why would you want to spend 2 hours making one out of wood when you can spend $1.80 and get it out? I mean, come on.
The other thing is there's no leakage on this either, whereas there's a chance of leakage on
That's correct. That's correct. Okay, so if you make one, you still need to make this base. And the woods I would recommend are maple, sycamore, cherry, poplar. Something like that. You don't want to make it out of some exotic wood or anything like that, and it's too expensive. Okay? Even I have a lot of cherry, and I wouldn't make one out of cherry either. And you don't want to make it out of red oak, because red oak is porous, and the pores go all the way through, and so you'd have to, even with the maple and stuff, I finished the outside with something. And okay, when you go to put this stuff on, the foam on, you can either use something like Easy Tack, or what I've been using is just the CA glue. I get that nice and flat, and then I put a ring of CA glue on. I stick this up on there, put this on the headstock, and I use my my skew. You just take your skew and you hold it up there on the side with a point. Can everybody see this? I just put it up there. It cuts out the circle real easy, and then you do the same on the outside, and so you're done. So if you're doing it like I did, I started off making a big one, and then the center I used on one of the smaller ones, because you know it's still a circle. You just glue it on, cut out the center again. So okay, going on. Okay, so how to attach it. What I do is I've tried two different things. I guess I didn't bring the other one.
Is that the one you looked at?
Anyhow, I did. Oh, here it is. You can do it with a nut. You can buy a nut, drill a big hole, stick it in there. You want to cover. If you do it when you have the hole, you put tape over the end of the nut and then put epoxy in there, stick the nut in. And then after it's dry, then you cut out the tape. But because you don't want any of the epoxy to get on the threads. Okay, so this way, doing it this way, you'll have nice threads, but it's a lot more work. So the other way of doing it is you buy a Beal lathe spindle tap. So this one is 1.25 inches, which is the same as the threads on there. I also have one that's 1 inch. And you subtract 1/8 inch from that, and you get 1 1/8 inches. So then you take 1 1/8 inch Forstner bit and you drill out the hole. So what I would do is if I would mount this in the lathe and then in my chuck, and then just drill the hole through, and then you tap it and you put your tap on. What I did is I made a big wrench, so that fits in there, and you put that on your tailstock, the point of your, what did I do with that? Anyhow, put it on, and then you get it up there, and you just start turning it, and as you turn it, you cut, and this will go in, but you have to keep applying pressure by turning your handle at the same time. Okay, and you don't have the, it's best to have the headstock locked. Okay, if you have to have some way to lock the headstock. Some lathes have it, some don't. And then you can just turn that, and you just you turn like a quarter of a turn or maybe a half a turn, and then you back up and keep back going in and out. So that, and then when you're done, you should put a sanding sealer or something like that. I use I just use shellac that I've thinned down 50-50 with alcohol. So
On the thread itself?
in the threads itself, yeah.
Okay.
And let it dry. That's after you're done. Okay, so let's see. Okay. Oh, if you do have a flat thing that you want to do, what you can do is, I used MDF board for this one, but if you made one out of regular wood, you could dish it slightly, and then that'll work. Okay.
How much does one of the taps cost?
The tap?
$30 or somewhere there.
Yeah, around 25 or 30, something like that. I think the 1-inch ones might be as low as 20. But the big ones, like this, I think are about closer to 30. Okay. Okay, now, to supply the vacuum, you can either use a pump, or they have a Venturi piece that's a little square box, and then you use your air compressor, and what happens is the air compressor is blowing air this way, and there's a hole coming up here, and that's the same thing that they use for spray guns. They're supplied with a Venturi. Okay. I chose not to do that because even as loud as this is, my air compressor is probably twice or 3 times as loud. And I don't like a lot of noise because I listen to what's happening when I'm turning and doing stuff, and you know, that gives you a clue when something bad's happening. So yeah, and the Venturi adapters, I know Grizzly has one made by Holdfast that's $135. Well, I bought that for $120. So maybe what I should do is set that up here first, so you can see it.
What's the cord? Get between your legs there.
I know. Okay, so there's my pump. The one I got is Thomas 2660. That's the model number. There's a lot of different models. There's a lot of places to get them from. I went on to eBay and searched, and the one I got just came with this basic motor. I put it on a plate. I added a filter on this end to act as a muffler so that I don't get, that cuts down on the noise. And I added on the vacuum gauge. Now, I really don't need a vacuum gauge there, but I did it so I would know, be able to compare the two when I was doing it. See if I had a leak, I would then know where the leak was. Also, I got a ball valve, and so I can turn it on and off there and still leave this running, but I can shut off the vacuum right there. I really wouldn't need that either, because I have another, over on this side, I have another ball valve that I can shut it off with too. Also, if I'm drawing, say I'm drawing 25 psi or inches of mercury, this ring was reading 25, and I don't want it to read 25, I want it to read less, I can open the ball valve and it'll come down some. So it won't be as much. So that's how, this is the one I use to control how much pressure it's putting on the bowl or whatever it is. Oh, and I did something they don't do, is I added connectors like you would have on your air compressor. Okay, most people don't do that, but I guess because they figure the fewer things they have and there's less chance of leaks, but I tried it and it works. Okay, so
The Frugal
right.
outfit is mentioned here.
Yes, that
They get medical vacuum pumps.
same as this. I'm not sure if Frugal doesn't buy them from the same place I bought them from.
Well, that could be, I don't know. But
Okay. He does, the Frugal guy come, I made these end pieces so somebody wouldn't accidentally stick their finger, because there's a fan at each end. Okay, there's a motor in the middle, there's a pump at each end, so I guess they're in series. But mine didn't come with these guards, so I just made them my own. It also came with this capacitor to start it, and it came with a cord, and the cord was already on there. The Frugal one comes with a switch in the cord, and the capacitor is
either built in or something.
no, it's wired in, but it has a cover over this whole, how it's attached, so you can't put your finger and touch anything. Well, what I did is I just put some extra connectors there that are insulated, so I can't touch it either. So okay, this also has a vacuum release valve or pressure release valve on the end. I don't know if you can see it. So there's a pressure release valve. So if you get too much pressure, in other words, if somebody would put their finger or something over this end and block it, then it would try to, because this is basically an air compressor. So there are all different kinds of air compressors. There's some that have pistons, there's some that have vanes, there's some, they call them wobble things. I'm not exactly sure how they work, but I think what it is they have a diaphragm, and they just pull down on the center of the diaphragm, and it's a rubber thing, and it just goes up and down. And so there's a whole bunch of different ways. You could even make one like a Wankel engine. You know, car engines, internal combustion engines are basically a pump. So is air compressors. So I suppose you could use an air compressor, and the intake of the air compressor would come into here, and what you're pressing, the air going out. It's the same design, just bigger or smaller. So yeah. You can buy them like this. I bought this as a rebuilt one. I don't use it that awful much. I use it a couple times a year, 3 or 4 times a year. But maybe if I was turning more, you know, I'd use it more. I don't know. What else? Okay, so I have on this thing, I bought mine from this place, Canyon Drive Systems in Texas, off of eBay. And basically they buy these from, I guess they have these in big boxes that for people that have COPD, that need oxygen. And so they just basically compress the air, I guess. And that's what they breathe. I don't know. But I know they use it for those. So they have a big box and they plug them in. My mother had one for a while. And yeah. So these are built to last a long, long time, because those people, when they, you know, to run 24 hours a day, they've got somebody that's got COPD, they needed the thing around their nose, you know, all the time. So, okay, the guy on Frugal that I mentioned on the handout, his, I think they have the plate, the end piece, and the capacitor is better hooked up than what mine was. Okay, the other thing you want to do is you want to have a filter before you get into here. So if you get any dust, sawdust, or anything like that, you don't want that being sucked into your pump, because that could screw it up, right? Get clogged and everything. So this is a gas fuel line filter from, I don't know, lawnmower or car or something. I don't know. I think I bought this one at Walmart, but there's a place over in York, Meadow. I don't remember what the name of it is, but anyhow, there's a place where it's a flea market kind of place, Meadowcroft or something like that.
Morningstar.
Morningstar, that's it. Yeah, and there's a guy in there that has like a hardware store, just boxes and boxes of stuff. And one of them had, so I got another one of those. And you know, I bought this hose again at Lowe's. And so, and I have a hose that comes out of this is the output, and I stick it behind a insulation on my wall, so I don't hear it. Cut down the noise. Okay. Oh, and some people, what they do is teeing off of this hose that goes from the pump to the end of the thing there, they put an air tank. Basically what they do is they draw a vacuum on that air tank also. So if you lose power, it's going to be and you have your bowl on here, and all of a sudden the power goes off, that'll give a chance for the motor to spin down a little bit before the bowl falls off. Because as soon as you lose vacuum, the bowl will come off.
As long as you run this setup right here. When you're running this setup versus a tank.
Yeah, if you have a tank, it just extends the amount of time before it falls off. That's all it does.
Just like an air compressor.
Right.
You have the tank that holds the air pressure.
Right.
So if you have power failure, the compressor shuts off.
Yeah.
You still have some pressure for a period of time.
Right.
Whereas with just hoses on, as soon as you lose power,
That's
you
right.
also lose pressure.
Yes. Some people, you know, they shut the pressure off. Well, when they have the switch in the line, they flip that off. And if you do it in the wrong order, in other words, you switch this off before you switch your lathe off, it's going to fall off, and because the lathe is spinning, it'll go right across the room. And you don't want to be in front of it when it does. So that's why they do that. Where I live, I don't know, I've only had the power go out once or twice, and it wasn't when I was working, so I didn't bother with a tank. But if you do decide that you want a tank, you could make a tank out of just buying the pipe that would fit in here and get the end caps, get 2 end caps, glue it all up, and however long you want, or you can make 2 or 3 of them. And then you would use fittings like these and glue them, screw them in there, and hook it up, and yeah, so it's easy to do. You could put, for example, you could put this and then the tank above it or below it, on a board, but I don't know. I've seen people that did it on the YouTube, but not many. Okay. Okay, so next thing we want to talk about is the vacuum adapter. Well, I'll show this one first. When I first started out, I watched the one thing on YouTube by the people I listed, Denton, the Denton Turners, the Takis and Soldberg guys. And they showed you, they have plans on how to make one of these. Actually, this would probably be a better one on this, but I can't. I made this one for my lathe, so the shaft is that long, and I can't take it out. The one I brought here today is one I bought. But because of the handle on the end here, it's big, long, skinny. This one, I can add a different shaft to just by unscrewing this, which I did when I came here tonight because I had a longer one. I didn't know exactly how long, so I set this up, cut it off with a hacksaw. So this one is made by Holdfast, and I think you can get it from Grizzly now for $63.
Well, that looks like just a regular electrical pipe there, the one with all...
This is lamp rod. Yes, this is lamp rod.
Yeah.
That's what this is, yes. Okay. A lathe like this, you probably wouldn't need the lamp rod. You could... They make them that have a piece that comes out and just has 2 O-rings, and it'll fit in here. And it doesn't extend all the way through.
It expands on the other end or something?
No, it's got 2 O-rings and you just stick it in there. And it's the size is the size of this tube.
Yeah.
Okay, but your arbor here, or main shaft, is solid, so there's no leak. So it just fits in there. These books I listed, they show you different ways of making them if you want to make one yourself. Okay? And if you if you have one lathe and oh shoot, I forgot this. I had to make this gasket tonight too because this is too small for this lathe. But anyhow, and then there's the piece that goes on the end.
And that is a bearing in reality, I mean, or at least part of a bearing, or...
No, this is just a piece of aluminum that comes with it, and it's got an O-ring on it. Well, anyhow, when you make them yourself, you need, if you do it like I did, the same type. I made this. It's got 2 bearings in it, like these. Okay, this isn't really the right kind of bearing. You're supposed to get one. This is a double shielded, but you need one that has the rubber face on it, so it completely seals air out. I could have done, I guess, is put a couple pieces of inner tube on either side of the 2 bearings, and maybe that would have been enough. Actually, when I tried this, it doesn't leak that much, so I can still use it. Okay? So, but what you do need is this piece to go in the end, so you have something to stop the air from going back through. Okay, so to make one of these, well, I don't see the other part, but anyhow, I can use this. What you do is you take a piece of wood, flat piece of wood, another flat piece of wood, you glue them together. Then you lay this down and you take another piece of flat wood and you push it up again there and you glue that down. And so that's your pattern. So when you go to turn this, you put this on your thing, in your chuck, and you use this and you just keep pushing it up again there. Okay, so you know when you got it right, when you get it to the right size. Okay, for using it, setting it up. That's it. You gotta get this threaded back on. The articles in those books that are listed, especially the one by Doc Green, it's called, forget.
I'm going to try to put that together for you.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Doesn't matter which way this goes.
Fixtures and Chucks. I would recommend that book highly. The one by Ellsworth, he's got some things that I don't. Do you need a file to clean the threads up?
Well, there's a possibility here. Let me just try looking at that.
There. Okay, one of the things I do at home is I got these little things at Harbor Freight. Sometimes they even give them away. And that's what I put my chuck jaws in. Okay? So they stay there. They're, especially with my chuck, this is an easy chuck. And so I can remove the jaws and replace all the jaws in 20 seconds. Because they have a pin that goes in, so like a screwdriver, or actually it's a like an Allen wrench. You just stick it in there and it pops it out and you're done. They come off, you stick the other ones in, and so it doesn't take, it's not like most of the other chucks where you have to take it off, put it on the bench, take out 2 screws. You know, it takes you 5 minutes. This takes 20 seconds. Now they're a lot more expensive. So.
Maybe not too good here.
Yeah, that's what I was afraid of.
Those magnetic trays, they come in handy for a lot of stuff.
Oh, they do. They do.
Yeah.
So anyhow, that's my trick on those. Okay, here's what I was looking for before, is the just a plain arbor that you can see.
There's like a little burrow there.
Yeah, so.
Bill, do you have to use that special type of hose?
Not really. You just want it so that it's stiff enough that when you suck a vacuum, it's not going to collapse. So like I don't know, when I was a kid, I had a Bunsen burner and a Fisher burner, and I had a hose that hooked up to the gas, and those would have collapsed. They were flexible and thin enough. But this, you did it?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, John. So anyhow, I put O-rings on mine. I don't know that I needed to, but I did. And what I did was, on making this, you drill different size holes at different depths, and then you stick your bearings in there, and you have to glue the shaft to the inside of the bearing, basically. Okay, so and then on this end I have to put another fitting. It'll be something like this, but so it would go in side the bearing, and so it's attached to the inner race of the bearing, and the outer races are inside. And then I made this fender washer, and I drilled holes to go into the wood, so that'll hold the bearing in place. So okay, so he's got that done. So I made this big plate so that I would have something to show you that would spin. Okay. If you look, you can see it's not real strong, but it doesn't collapse. Okay, I'm drawing 25, almost 25 inches of mercury when I put my finger on the shaft. So if I put this up there, press that again there, now I'm drawing, I got a little bit of a leak. Okay, so now what I would do, so this is being held on. I can't pull it off. Doesn't move. What?
He said, I'm in the line of fire.
tire, I said, I was thinking about it.
I don't know how to turn this on. Push, pull on so it's on, then I crank it up, huh? Doesn't look like it's exactly centered. But I could put a chisel on here and
We can try to center that a little better.
what I'm doing, I don't really care. This isn't, it's not, I'm trying to take this. This bowl had a foot on it and it got a crack and it broke out. Okay? So okay, the bowl's no good, right? But if I take that foot off and go down, it'll be okay. Nobody will know that it had the foot on it originally. It'll be more like this one. Now, I turned this bowl a while back and I got a catch or something, I don't know. But anyhow, I got a hole in it. So I hadn't finished the bottom. So what I did was I put it in my chuck. Now I can't do it here because the hole isn't the right size. And I mounted it like that and I finished turning the bottom. Well, you say, how could I do that? Because you got a hole in it. What I did is I just put packing tape over it. One piece. Hell, you know, the vacuum just sort of sucked it a little bit in, but mostly that was enough. And I put it on there and it worked. Huh? You can pass that around. I brought that a couple months ago. That was the one that I put the bird in. That you told me to do? Yeah, that's what I did. You can see how loud it is. It's a little loud, but it is not like my air, anywhere near what my air compressor is. Okay? It fell off eventually. But you can see on here that it wasn't centered by where the indentations are.
If you did care that it wasn't centered, how would you go about getting it?
Okay, what you would do, plug it in, show you. What you do is you put it on with, I regulated how much pressure with this valve over here. Okay, I got it on so I can't move it. But if you just lower the pressure down to like 5 and it comes off, so you just still not centered. Anyhow, that's what you do is you mess with the pressure and you just slide it around until you get it.
Yeah, if you make a
Huh?
Looks like it's all just tiny bits
I haven't worried about putting a switch in the thing because where I do, I just let it on for a while and mess with the valve, and when I want to take something off, and then I unplug it. By doing that, I'm sure I don't accidentally shut it off when it's spinning, okay? Because you could screw up and, you know, off it goes. Or in my case, I have a wall right behind here, so it's going to hit that wall and then come back at me.
Well, it's going to get you either way.
It's going to get me either way, right? Well, if it hits it at a low enough angle, it'll go down to the floor, but okay, let's see. Okay, so if you use a bowl, if you're turning a bowl and you want to do it, you just pick the right size chuck. You know, it doesn't have, you know, I mean, I could do this bowl on any of these, right? Even this one. So this plate I could do on, but if I was turning the inside, I could do it on that one even. So it's not so critical, is the thing.
Just the fact that bigger one's gonna hold it better.
Yeah, but if you have, this one is turned with a fairly thick base. But if you turn them with a very thin base, you could crush it. You could just blow out the bottom. So if you're down, if your sides of your vase or your bowl or your plate are down under 1/8 of an inch or near 1/8 of an inch, I'd say, yeah, you want to be careful because you'll blow it out. Okay. Does anybody else have any questions? Okay, you got all your papers so you know what to, where to look it up.
What's your estimated investment for the whole thing?
I don't know, it's under $200. I got, well, I have 120 in that and $60, no, actually I got mine last year, so it was $55 for this. And then the hose and the valves and the, well, this gauge here probably cost me 20, but that gauge down there cost me 5. So, yeah, I don't know. It's under $200.
Does anybody else have vacuum trucks?
I have one, but it's not hooked up.
Ain't doing you no good then, are
I know, that's right.
There's a, Bill, you didn't mention it, there's another system that doesn't draw through the tailstock. It has a
Oh, yes.
piece that you hook your vacuum to.
Yes, that's true. There is a way to do it where basically the bearing, instead of being back here, is in every chuck. So every chuck has its own bearing. So you just have the rod that comes out and you plug the pipe on, or the hose on the end of it. But that means you got to have a lot of bearings. Not that bearings are that expensive. You can buy the bearings, the ones you really need, not the one I have. I use these because I had them. These were bearings I had bought for my bandsaw, for the blade guides. So I tried them. I had them, I tried them. If I was going to do it again, I would buy the regular. But I saw somebody that got, what was it? They got 10 of them for $16. So that's $1.60 a bearing. That's with shipping. I think they went on Amazon and bought them. So, yeah.
Well, thank you, Bill.
Okay.
Good job.